Welcome back to the Travsessed podcast. We're your hosts, Kim and Aaron, and we are back after a little hiatus.
I know. I almost feel just nervous, like being back on the mic. Like it's been a month.
Over a month. We did not do a podcast before we left for like the first 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we just got back from Patagonia, which we're going to get into in this episode. And when we're on our group trips, we're just completely there, and it's like a full-on immersive experience, and we don't really come up for air. And so the podcast, there was just no space, no room to do the podcast. Like there was just absolutely no time. And the only time that we had in between groups, we were fucking sleeping.
Yeah.
Because we were exhausted.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're going to dive into all that and more. And here we go, back on the mic.
Please prepare for departure.
Okay, so, wow.
So on this episode, we basically just wanted to kind of unpack the last month in our trip to Patagonia, kind of share some fun behind the scenes stuff, and just kind of reconnect with you guys. Honestly, It's funny because when we were gone, I really enjoy the podcast. Like,
totally.
Not only do I love connecting with the people and sharing stories and, whatever, but I really enjoy just this time to sit down with you, where I feel like we're just in a conversation.
No distractions.
Yeah, because we're on the mic.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I missed it. I really did. I'm excited to be back.
No, I know. And it was funny because I went out and got these really cool microphones. I did a lot of research, and I was like, we can take this with us.
Oh my God.
And it's like, finally, we have something that sounds good, that is mobile. And so then I buy them, and we literally go through a 2-month hiatus on the podcast, which we've never done
ever
in 3 years.
It's the mics. And we can travel with them, and we'll go live in our tent, and we'll do a podcast. We had all these big expectations. The reality of it is, we were in our tent with 70-mile-an-hour winds, pouring down rain, just trying to survive.
Trying to survive. No, I think too, the reality of, I don't want to jump ahead, but the reality of the trip is the trip. It's you can have expectations of what you think downtime's going to be and what you think you're going to have. But again, you and I are responsible for creating the most memorable experience for these people that are coming on these trips. And that means we are working until late and making sure that everybody's okay. And then we are debriefing and then falling asleep in the middle of our debrief.
Yeah. It's a lot of energy.
It's a lot of energy. And so.
Well, I think too, just with the podcast itself, I was just thinking about, we hadn't done it and I missed it and all the kind of things. And it's I feel like the podcast, out of everything we do, is the best expression of us, right?
Totally.
Because we can just sit and we can talk, and we can tell stories, we can tell our insights, we can tell lessons or things we're learning. And I feel like it's a place that we can just be the most real and the most vulnerable, and there's no filter. We're not live on Facebook teaching.
We're not trying to create a storyline on YouTube.
It's not a YouTube where we're showing you different things, and it's more kind of scripted. And even our trips, we're there in person, and it's just you're having all these incredible conversations, and it's such a beautiful experience, but it's still, this is just you and I kind of unleashing on our own. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I love being able to do that.
No, and I think when it comes down to it, we've also realized in comparison to YouTube and what that takes, this doesn't take the amount of time, effort, energy that YouTube does. And it's something that we deeply love, as you've stated. And it's easy for us to do. It's fun. Mm-hmm. It's exciting. It's like you said, I never really looked at it from that level of we've always been good at talking to each other, but this is an hour or so of us literally paying attention, not looking at our phones.
I got a text.
I know, but it's the whole point of it, we can unpack a lot of stuff. And I think even after a lot of these podcasts, I leave feeling a lot more refreshed, a lot more rejuvenated, and a lot more clear on certain things.
Totes. It's a good therapy session.
It really is.
With all that being said, we have missed you. Thank you for coming back. We are back. We are home from the most incredible trip to Patagonia. And we're home for about 7 weeks. And then we leave again for Peru, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what's the date. It's like the 25th or something.
No, today's the 19th.
The 19th. So this will come out on the 20th. So we are getting ready to launch our Travsessed Bali trip. Our goal, it has been a hustle since we've got home. Like this is a trip that's so important to us because Bali is one of our favorite places in the world. And so we're really trying to create a unique experience, like something that, like, we have a lot of insight into Bali and connections there. And so wanting to create something that you can't just like go, I mean, you could go do on your own essentially, but you couldn't just show up and go do. Like, we wanted to create something special and to really highlight our favorite parts about Bali.
Well, and I think even adding that, to be honest with you, I feel like the past 5 or 6 conversations we had about Bali, I just feel like people have a misconception about. And it's not the Bali that I know. And it was weird because I feel like we were defending it to these people, and they were like, it's either known as a beach party backpacker spot or a yoga retreat spot, or some people even said Bali's one of the most dangerous places ever. And I'm like, you
never heard that before.
Like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, what is your experience? I mean, obviously there's bad things everywhere, but Bali is one of the like most spiritual, loving places I've ever been. Every single interaction I've had, I don't think I've ever had one that I've been like, they were assholes.
Bali is the least sketchy place I've ever been, like ever. And we've been a lot of places. So I think, people think of it as this big party island. And I think that, yes, that's true and that's there. I think it depends on how you travel, right? And so our trips are planned around how we like to travel and the things that we like to do. And so we experience it completely different than someone who's going to Bali who's just going to party, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the difference of our trips. I mean, Bali, there's so much adventure, there's so much culture, there's so much beauty, there's so many incredible things that you can do. And so we really want to showcase that part of Bali because that's the Bali we love and how we would want to travel through Bali, and really giving people a taste of the real side of Bali, not the party side, not the westernized side for digital nomads and all the people moving in, and the people, and focusing on the people and the culture and the adventure. Like, that's like our passion.
But I mean, that also leads into why we started planning adventure trips anyway, was because of that. Because we did always feel like when we're talking to people, and even people that have been to the same places, we have totally different experiences. And our experiences, we felt, were life-changing. And so we're like, where's the missing mark? And so when we decided that we would love to lead group adventures, to show people that, to showcase that, and to see if they felt the same way. And so far, so good. Like, it's literally been working. So there is something there in the way that we travel, in the way that we experience things, that I love bringing to other people. And that's what sets Travsessed adventure trips apart.
Yeah. Our trips are not for everybody. They're just not. Like, we travel in a very different way. We like to get off the beaten path. It's very adventure focused. Obviously, Peru and Patagonia are very physically challenging with the hiking and all of that. Bali won't be like that. There will be adventures and there will be some hiking, but it won't be anything like the extent that we've done. But our trips are definitely for people who like to get away from the crowds, like to have an adventure, want to like get gritty and really learn and connect with where they are, right? We're not staying in the Four Seasons. We're not laying on beaches. That's just not the vibe. We want to find the local people, connect, learn, go do something challenging and physical and fun. But also, we really like to have beautiful, delicious dinners and drink wine and have fun and stay in some nice accommodation. So I think they're really a great mix of both, But if you are not into having an adventure and you are more of like a resort traveler, these trips are not for you.
No, and I really like to try to focus and call in the people of being like, this is not what I expected, but hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I like.
Yeah.
You know, like, this might not be the best sleep of my life, but look where I'm at, right? Like, it might be raining and 100-mile-an-hour winds, but wow, what an experience.
Right.
Right? That's the kind of mindset that I want on these trips. And that's what I really try to put out there, because those are the times that are changing, right? Those are your life-changing moments when you're looking at, you know, maybe it's a little of like, wow, like I have a lot more things in my life than I really need because of these people, and look how happy they are and look what they're doing. Like, that's a life-changing moment. Wow, I pushed myself outside of my comfort zone, slept in a tent with 100-mile-an-hour winds and it's pouring down rain. I wake up and my clothes are wet, but I got to wear them anyway because it's all I got. Let's go. This is going to be an amazing day, right? Like, those kind of things change your perspective. And we've always said a change in perception is the definition of a miracle, right? We've learned that from Gabby and Course in Miracles and all those kind of things. And that really reigns true to me. And I try to bring that out through these situations.
Yeah, a positive mindset and being able to be adaptable and a change of perception when things are hard are really the most important thing on these trips. Go ahead.
I was just going to say what you just said is perfect, but what I would add to that is when things are tough and you still can figure out that mindset to enjoy it, that's what sets you apart when you come home. Because when life gets tough and you're like, I love this, let's go. Like, let's make the most of this. Let's turn this into something that's going to be life-changing. That is, I feel like, the undertow of the lessons that I want to bring out in these trips.
Well, yeah, and I think that we always say that, and I think Gabby Bernstein also said this, but it's not, you can't always control your experiences, but you can control the way you experience that experience, right? And I think that's the powerful thing, because, you know, you can't control, especially when you're out in the wild and you're in a remote place or you're out in nature, you're hiking. You can't control a lot of things, especially just traveling in general, right? Things come up, there's challenges. You can't control that, but you can control your attitude, your mindset. Do you learn from this? Can you laugh about it? Can you have fun? Like, that is really what sets people apart. And not that life is always rainbows and butterflies, because that's absolutely not the truth, but it's like, how do you deal with adversity? How do you deal with challenge? How do you deal with extreme conditions, or when things are hard, or your feet hurt, or you blew out your knee and you still have to hike up a mountain and you're like, what am I supposed to do? That is where I feel like you test yourself and you test your grit and you test that mindset and your mentality. And when you can click into that inner mindset of, I got this, that is where that power comes from. And these trips absolutely crack that open.
Well, people. And you said life's not always rainbows and butterflies, and it's not. But if you can learn those skills in a fun way, when you come home and you are saying, like, look at, like, I used to hate wind in general. Literally, we had a windy day here in Florida when we came home, and I'm like, this isn't even windy. Like,
oh, I know.
This is nothing, right? Like, I used to be like, oh, it's not that nice of a day. I was like, it's gorgeous out. I love the wind. Like, after what we experienced in Patagonia. So the power of travel does change your perception when you get home. And if you can do it in that way, when things do get tough at home, when you do have all of your luxuries that we have here in the United States, and, you know, what do you call them? Ease of life, and in a way, right? Like, we have grocery stores and we have easy things to go get what we need, conveniences. You really can have something to compare it to, and you can choose how you show up.
Yeah. I think, you know, a perfect example so I ended up having to get new hiking boots last second. Okay. So
After
I got
the fourth pair.
I got these freaking hiking boots and I wore them at home, tried to break them in. And I knew, and again, it just goes back to always listen to your gut, because I knew, I was like, ooh, I just think that these aren't going to be a good fit for me. But I kept at it and I kept being like, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. I thought I needed like the ankle boot. And so I was like, they're going to be fine. We get to Patagonia, and the first, there's so many stories, but we were supposed to go to this place called La Peninsula, which is this beautiful estancia, and which is like a ranch there. And the only way you can get there is by boat. And so we go our first day, right? Everyone arrived. We had our beautiful dinner. The next day, we have this beautiful
Pumped
day
up, ready to
planned.
go.
We're riding horses through the mountains, down the
Barbecue,
beach.
wine.
Yeah, like we're learning about the gaucho culture, which is like they call their what they would consider cowboys gauchos, and like their culture and their way of living and how they do things in Patagonia,
like sheep herding and sheep shearing and how they run the ranch and like horseback riding, and
it was just this incredible day. So we were so excited, and we have to take a boat out there. And again, we're in Patagonia, which is known for its unpredictable weather, its crazy winds. I mean, you're at the end of
the world.
Like the next stop is Antarctica, right? The seas are crazy. It's just, I mean, the fjord we were in was called Last Hope, right? Like it just gives you a sense of like, because they're like, if we don't find land after this is our last hope of survival, right? And so that's like what we're in. So we have to take a boat out there, and it was very windy day. They're like, we're gonna give it a try. And so we head out there, and it starts getting like super crazy, super rocky, like waves are getting higher, and we're like, whatever, like, just keep going. Like we really wanted to go. And we end up not pulling in, but like getting into like
the Last Hope Sound.
The Last Hope Sound, and literally the waves were coming over the boat. Like not even kidding. It was like a swirl. And I was like, oh my God.
And I mean, we're not on the biggest boat, but like...
No, it was a little guy.
Yeah.
And so the captain said, nope, I have to turn around. And so we had to like shoot it so quick to be able to turn around so that we didn't get like blown, or not blown over, but what? Tipped over. It was actually quite terrifying. So I'm like, close my eyes, like crying, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. Like this is how it ends for us. At least we're doing what we love.
Not.
Well, and the boat's
enclosed.
The boat is enclosed, so it's not like you could just jump out into the water. Like you're inside a vessel, not under the water.
Yeah, you can.
Whatever. I was scared. So anyways, long story short, we came back because we couldn't go. And so of course we were disappointed. But we were like real quick, as the host of the trip, Aaron and I had to figure out what's plan B. What are we going to do? We got to do something. We're not going to be like, well, go sit at your hotel and hang out. Like we had to figure out a plan B. So we ended up going to, and I'm getting back to the boots here. Okay.
Yeah.
Long-winded version of talking about these
boots.
Damn boots. But we ended up going to these caves that was completely unexpected and wasn't on the itinerary. And we went, and it was so cool because we wouldn't have been able to do it had we gone to La Peninsula, which we did end up getting to go to La Peninsula with that group on the last day.
Which was
it worked
perfect.
out, thank God. But so we go to the caves, we're hiking, and my feet were like bleeding. And so this was before we were hiking the W Trek. So I'm so grateful that happened.
The next day we were hiking the W Trek, starting.
Right. So I'm so grateful that happened, because had we had not hiked the caves, I wouldn't have known how bad they were really going to be. So I was like, I can't do this. So we end up going into town, and I found a pair of Las Sportivas, which is like my favorite brand. I hiked the Inca Trail in it, and they're like they're like trail runners. They're not hiking boots. And I realized I do not like hiking boots. So I got those. They were so comfortable, but they were not waterproof. And that first group, when I say it rained and rained and rained and snowed and was windy almost the entire time.
Yeah, we had a couple days.
We had there were beautiful moments.
We had beautiful weather to kayak.
Yes, hallelujah for that. But because my boots weren't waterproof, I was basically hiking in soaking wet socks and shoes, and we're talking 10 miles, right? It's like long days of hiking,
10 to 12 to 13 miles a day.
And I had bad blisters as well because of those first shoes that I got. And so it was quite miserable to be soaking wet. Your feet are soaking wet, and in like every step I could feel the schlops. It was just like, it's like having wet socks, and it was just not the vibe. But it's really powerful, your mindset of just, I tapped into that whole, listen, this isn't ideal, but there's nothing I can do. And it is what it is. And so I'm not going to complain and be upset about it the whole time. I'm going to stop thinking about it. And I kept changing every time I would think about it, I would keep changing my focus of like, I can't wait till we get to the refugio and we're by the fire and I can dry my shoes and I can dry my socks. And I just kept focusing on that. And then it's like, you just get, like, it doesn't take over anymore. It's like what you put your energy into. If I would have just focused on how miserable and hot, like my feet were, it would have been a miserable experience.
Yeah. Totally.
But it's like, it is what it is. I changed my mindset around it. And we had, even through the crazy freaking weather, we had fun.
Oh, yeah.
We laughed.
It became a game. It was like, wow, I want the wind to blow us off the trail. Like, that's so much fun. When do you ever get that?
Yeah.
Like, that's why people go outside in hurricanes in Florida, because it's like, wow, like the whole feeling, and then the whole weather people and like Jim Cantori like videos. That's basically... If you think about us hiking on the W Trek for the first group, it was like in a complete Jim Cantori video. If you don't know who that is, Google him. And so like, that's how we were hiking the trail, because the wind was just so nuts.
It was, again, it was the most crazy weather, but we kept saying, this is Patagonia.
Yep.
This is what makes the hike challenging, is the weather, the extreme weather that we are experiencing. Like, that is what made the hike, it was so Patagonia. So the whole time the group were just laughing, and like you could hear the wind start to come, and we would all like put our poles down and just like brace for it. And it became like this game, and we were all just like bracing, and like you would wait for the big gusts to pass, and then you could keep hiking. And we were just like, this is crazy. Like, this is Patagonia. And it became this fun experience. And then we were so grateful when we reached our refugio every night, because we had a hot shower, a warm bed, and we were away from the wind. Yeah. And we were like, I appreciate this so much more, because now I'm out of the elements, you know, which is just funny how
it's funny. We'd be looking down at all the people in the tents, and like our guides would be in tents, and like they're literally, people are getting out of their tent and the wind is blowing them over, because you're obviously crawling in a way, and you try to stand up, and at that moment you stand up, 90-mile-an-hour gust. Like, it's insane. Like the wind was so strong, and it's like we're trying to like paint this picture to the second group, because they didn't get to experience this. And the wind that we had with the second group was literally nothing.
No, like, and they'd be like, oh my God, it's so windy. And I'm like, bitch, you don't even know.
And you have no idea. Like, literally the wind was so strong in one of the refugios that the walls were caving in. And these were like wooden, solid walls. But we learned that they build them that way with the struts or whatever they screw the walls to make them secure. They have give, because if it didn't have give, it would blow the windows out. And so it was a Chilean Patagonia architect that designed these to handle these kinds of winds. And I've just never seen a building flex with wind blowing so hard.
We were like, if we were home right now in Florida, we would be under hurricane warning, and we would all be like underground. Like, we were all just like drinking our wine. The walls were caving, and we're like, this is so cool, man. We're in Patagonia. Like, it was just wild. And the first night of the first group of the W Trek, Aaron and I were supposed to have a bed in the refugio, because we planned one night of camping, but the rest of the nights were in refugios, which are basically kind of like dorms, like hostels. And there's a place you can have dinner, and there's bathrooms and showers, and then it's bunk rooms. So super simple, but like cozy and everything that you need. So we were supposed to stay in the refugio, but they didn't have enough beds. So we had to sleep in a tent outside, which we weren't expecting. And we're like, oh, it's fine. Like, we're going to get some privacy. Maybe we'll like cuddle, kiss a little, whatever. This is awesome. Like, and then we get out there. Oh my word.
I mean,
what a freaking night.
It was a complete experience. Like, Kim went into total like chaos, thinking that she was going to get trapped in the tent. She's sleeping with my knife. Like,
okay, hold on.
She has to open the tent.
Let me put some context. You can't, like, so I'm claustrophobic, and I have this thing that I have to be able to see my way out of a room in order to feel relaxed. So I don't completely sleep in the dark. I have to have a little bit of light. As long as I can see there's a way out. When it's dark, I get nervous. So in the tent, I woke up, and again, we're talking crazy winds. I was like, this tent's gonna blow away. This is insane. crazy winds. Aaron's passed out, sleeping like a baby. And I panicked because I couldn't figure out how to get out of the tent, and we were completely zipped up. So I went into a complete panic attack, and I'm like, babe, I was like screaming his name. He literally wasn't budging, or you couldn't hear me over the wind. It was like a scene from Twister.
Well,
like,
I had gotten used to falling asleep with Jimbo or whoever it was beside us, like having like the time of their lives at 11 p.m., like laughing and being crazy. So I just like...
Yeah, there was loud people next to
us. I
us.
zoned out so I could sleep.
So I was like screaming and he wasn't budging. I finally figured out how to get out of the tent. I come out of the tent and I'm just like, it was like a horror scene.
I did hear that. I did hear.
And then I would go to put my head in the tent to get my phone. So I had a light because it's also pitch black. I could not find my headlamp. And I go to grab my phone, and every time I would put my head back into the tent, even though my body was out of the tent, I would start to panic. So I would like go, like I would look in to try to find it, but then I would have to come out, and then I would come back in, and then I would have to come out. Like, it was crazy. So I finally snatch up my phone. I go like walk around because I'm like, I just need some fresh air. That was insane. And there's like a party happening, and like
people smoking weed.
I come out of the woods looking probably like a psycho. Like I was like huffing and puffing, like eyes were just terror. And I come out, and there's like at one of it's like a hangout spot where there's a bathroom, and people like the campers would hang out. And I like come out of the woods, and there's like a bunch of people on the deck like drinking, smoking weed, listening to music. And I come out, and they all like look at me, and I was like, it was so, I have like my Crocs on.
Dude, what I thought was crazy was I actually woke up and the tent's open, and it's literally a mix of like heavy wind and rain. And I see Kim's body is in the tent and her head is outside, and so is her pillow. Like, she's got just her head outside the tent with the tent open, and I'm like, what is going on?
So that's
and my knife.
So I finally came back to the tent. And I was like, I have to get some sleep. I'm so tired. And we were like starting a hike the next day.
It was a long one.
Yeah. And so I like I had to turn my sleeping bag around and sleep with my head at the door open and head out. And then I fell asleep. But then I was thinking, the wind is so crazy, this tent's gonna blow away. And so I had the knife because I thought, well, if it does, at least I can cut ourselves out and we can escape. It was just absolute insanity. And so the next day I talked to the guides because I said, like, you know, I know it's windy here, but is this normal? Like, I was really worried about the tent blowing away. And they're like, that's not a thing, because the way that the tents are designed, they're like aerodynamic, and then they're like in the ground. So that's never going to happen. Mm-hmm. So then I felt like I relaxed after that. But I think that was like the worst night of like sleep.
Yeah.
It was just terror all night.
I think, I mean, yeah, you're constantly, whatever it is, right? You have individuals that battle their own things. Like, you're dealing with sloshy feet and, you know, not sleeping very well, and then getting up and having to like not only like hike and do it, also knowing that we were doing it again the next week, like the same thing. And covering 90 miles in the weather that we had the first time in 2 weeks, like, you're kind of like, what have we done? Yeah. You know? But it's crazy because, like, for me, I slept fine. Like, I mean, it wasn't ideal. My body hurt. The mat that they gave me only covered half my body, so half was on, half was off. But like, that's the point, right? Like, I'm in Patagonia, sleeping in a tent under the mountains, like about to go hike the W Trek, like, cool group of people, like, we had solid food. I had a hot shower that night. Like, what else do you need? I think, like, for me, it's like learning how to not wake up and be in my own element, right? Like, that's more draining to me. And that's something that these trips have really brought to the forefront. And again, it's the mindset that you and I have, right? Like, I said it, this kind of stuck with a lot of people. I mentioned it twice, both groups, and it really landed. So I think it's a bigger thing that I'm gonna start using a lot more. But Kim and I's firm belief is to stop using our index fingers and use our thumbs, because if you're using more thumbs and you start to realize, like, these things are triggering me, these things are upsetting me, these things are difficult to deal with. And if I just blamed them on everybody else, I wouldn't start looking at myself using my thumbs. And so I think realizing that like waking up and being on first thing in the morning, like good morning, like holding the energy throughout the entire day and having to hike and still wanting to like get some rest and still wanting to have fun and still wanting to be a leader of the trip. Like it's tough. And it's one of those things that like I really accept the challenge and I end up loving that part of the challenge because I feel like I leave these trips a little bit better as a human. Mm-hmm. And so these trips are not only therapeutic and hopefully life-changing for our travelers, but they are every single time for us.
100%. I feel the same way. I think again, learning to be adaptable. So is such a big part of travel, right? Like you have to adapt and be flexible. And, you know, these trips being with a group of people, like you were saying, where, you know, for me, in my normal life, waking up in the morning, I like quiet. I don't even talk to you. It's just I choose to wake up early in the morning so I can have my alone time. Mm-hmm. And that is so sacred to me. And it like fills me up and gets me ready to go start my day. And it's something that's so important. And so that's my real life. On these trips, yeah. You do not have coffee. And when I say, I'm using the word coffee loosely, it's like powdered coffee and water, and it's not good. And
you're in a room, a cafeteria style with a bunch of people.
Right. So that's what I was saying. So like, the coffee's disgusting, but I mean, it gets the job done, but I just put sugar in it. But yeah, there's no almond milk. There's no specialness. It's just like
no pumpkin spice, no cinnamon,
coffee, and some water. It's like, okay, thank you, I'll take it. But yeah, it's like not only to get the coffee, you have to go in with the group of people. So it's like it's jarring to someone who doesn't speak, especially when you're with a group of people that are very chatty in the morning. And it's like, oh my God, like this is so much. But I would wake up a little bit earlier, like in my tent or in the bunk, and I would just kind of lay there and I would say my prayers and I would just kind of go over what I'm grateful for and collect myself. And so I would do it that way. And then I would go out and get my coffee. So at least I would have like 10 minutes to myself before I had to be talkative, and that helped. But yeah, that's something like big that you have to adapt. Like being with a group of people and leading a trip is very different than just going on a trip by yourself. And I think we did a really good job, and we only had a couple hiccups, which is to be expected. Mm-hmm. But all in all, like I feel like we had a really successful trip. I think you and I did a really good job of communicating, of supporting each other. And being adaptable.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to call it, this is our fourth trip, right? Second bout, like second full-on trip. And what I realized in that time is, you know, this was the first time that Kim and I got to do these trips, have this amazing experience with people that we meet in real life. I mean, some people we know, some people we meet in real life on the trail, like, you know, on this trip.
Yeah.
Like literally, hi. We've been social media friends, but like we've never met in real life. So like, let's go on this crazy adventure. Like that's been awesome. And then we get to come home, and usually Kim and I are finding a contract, and then we got to like stay in hotels and things like that. And so this was the first time we ever got to come home back to our home in Florida where all of our things are, and just kind of like rest and relax. And after this fourth trip, I realized I'm so addicted to this. Like, I love this more than anything, and I can't wait to get back out there. And I think that's like a really cool thing that's happened.
Well, I think it's not just, again, we're really passionate about traveling and creating experiences for people that will open them up and change the way they think about something, or just like we have a lot of moms who come on our trips, and they leave their husbands at home and their kids, and they just go like do something for themselves and have this adventure and meet other people. And I just think that's so inspiring, first of all. The people who come on these trips are so inspiring. The solo travelers who don't know anyone and just show up. And then they end up meeting incredible friends that they're still friends with, right? Like we have a group that on our very first Peru trip who we love, and they met on that trip.
Never knew each other.
And then they met on that trip, and then they all came on the first group in Patagonia, and they rented a car, and they went on a road trip together through Argentina.
Staying in same hotel rooms.
Yeah, I know. It's like, it's just so, well, because one of them is a guy, right? So a guy and two girls, and like, yeah, they're sharing hotel rooms, and they're going on these experiences, and people, you just meet other like-minded people to have this experience with. And so that's something we're really passionate about. But also for us, like, it is, leading these trips is like a classroom, because it's things that we're working on professionally, personally, our leadership skills, our relationship when it comes to communication, being in groups of people when it's not just Aaron and I.
Leadership as a couple, like where I feel that this is a strong thing to do, but you don't, and like being able to allow the person to go and then talk about it after. Like there's a lot of like lessons.
So many lessons, and there's so much to learn. And we also love that of using these as opportunities for us to grow and to get better and to be better versions of ourselves, better versions and as a couple, as individuals. And these trips really push us in so many different ways. And it's just such a cool, unique experience that I think has so many different layers to it. Mm-hmm. Like I think the day that there was like, again, we're with people for almost 3 weeks. And out of those 3 weeks, there was like one day where
I shut down.
Aaron just completely shut down, which again is completely fine. But when you're with a group of people, you gotta kind of like.
Well, and on top of that, I'm somebody that when I'm shut down.
Yeah.
Like it is visible, it looks aggressive, and I literally have you would think that I was a walking business with a COVID restriction. Like stay 6 feet away from me. Like, don't interact.
Yeah.
Like
your energy's so strong, like, because you're naturally such a friendly, fun, bubbly, welcoming dude. Like, that's naturally, you're talkative, and when you are shut down, you're a completely different person. And so obviously I know you very well and I could tell instantly. But like we had one day where, and we're usually at the front of the pack. Like we're not fast hikers, but we're in the faster hiker group, and that's usually where we are. And in that day, like I had hurt my knee the day before, and I wasn't feeling that well. I had a really bad headache, and my knee was hurting, and I kind of just wanted to hang back, which I never get to do. Well, I could if I want. Right. I choose to never do that. And so I was hiking slower, and I actually really loved it because I'm like, wow, it's quiet back here and I could take my time. I was like, I should do this more often. And then Aaron was in the back too, which again was already a little bit out of character. And then literally, like, you just did not say one word to one human. At lunch, you sat on a boulder by yourself.
It was amazing.
I know, but it was just funny because it was like you could, a couple of the girls were like, hey, is Aaron okay? Like, he just seems kind of like he's upset. I'm like, he's fine. He just needs a little bit of a break. He needs a little bit of him time. And that's exactly what you did need. Like, I just need a little bit of a break to then come back. Mm-hmm. But the learning thing was just being like, you absolutely can take that time for yourself, but then just being able to communicate that of like, hey guys, everything's fine. I just want to hang in the back. I need a little bit of me time, and everyone would get that.
Yeah.
But just to shut down. We're like, we can't do that in a group. We can do that together, but we can't do that in a group because then it's just freaking awkward.
And that was a big learning experience.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I actually bounced back, and that night, like I got to the tent and I unpacked my stuff, and like just being able to do those tasks while you were throwing up in the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
Good.
That day I felt so bad. And that was actually a scary day. And again, this was really the only hiccup day when it comes to how we were like feeling physically and emotionally. But I had the worst headache, and I felt so sick. And I thought, oh my gosh, I am not going to be able to continue, because the next day was our towers hike. And this was the second group. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to do it. Like, I think I'm going to have to sit it out because I felt so terrible. And so I was just like barfing all over the bathroom. And then I felt better. I think I just needed...
Puke and rally.
Because like my headache it was like a migraine. And then it ended up, I went to bed I didn't drink any wine that night. I just went to bed really early. And then I feel like the next day I was like ready to go.
Yeah, totally. But it's funny because it's like there's so many stories that we could tell. And there's, but I will say, like, we mentioned it briefly, but I think, like, when you were talking about it, I had, like, a visceral reaction. And the connection that happens within the people in the group is, like, what I think I love the most. Because Patagonia speaks for itself. Doing something challenging speaks for itself. But when you can have a group click to where there's 3 people that met on our trips, there's been a relationship that brewed from our trips. Now, granted, it wasn't 2 travelers. It was like a guide and a traveler, which is cool, who are still together. And then there's people literally like saying, I'm driving to visit you, which is the beauty of healthcare travelers going on these trips too, because we're so mobile and so free that like you're creating lifelong friendships and like those family bonds that were created due to doing something difficult and fun together.
Yeah, 100%. Which is my favorite part about it. I think the other, like, kind of, it's like a funny story, but kind of a snafu, like, behind the scenes. The ranch, the final.
I was going to say the fact that we got on a plane and it decided to land.
Well, I was going to save that till the end, because that was kind of like our coming home.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many stories. Like, honestly, I have to say, we had so much fun. Like, both of the groups were so fun, and especially the second group, because we're coming off the first group, and we're kind of tired and we have to gear up to do it again. You kind of you're just like, you gotta go to another level to show up and do a W trek and all of that again. And the second group showed up and they were so much fun, such high energy, good attitude, just positive, and that's exactly what we needed to fuel us through, to get us through the next like hike. Everybody was just so fun. Well, I just really enjoyed both groups so much.
And in Peru, we had said we're never doing 2 trips again, but I've actually realized that I really enjoy the second trip because we've done it, we see it, we know what it's like, we know what to expect, we know how to like get around any obstacles if they happen. Like, we understand the trip fully because we just experienced it. So the second group, I feel like there's a weight off my shoulders of not having to be on edge to like figure out like if something goes wrong, what do we need to do? Or if something changes, what do we need to do? Because I don't really understand this place. Like, and so now with this second group, it's like, okay.
We're more prepared. Yeah.
Completely more prepared. So it allows me to relax and then the energy carries us.
Yeah, 100%. So both groups are fantastic. And it was just fun. It was just a great trip. And but one of the major snafus, so obviously we plan every single detail. Our goal is to plan every detail and get everything organized so that when people show up, all they have to do is get themselves there and then they can just relax and enjoy their time off. Like,
just wake up and be at the van on time.
Yeah, like we've got the rest covered. That's kind of the point, is that people can just completely enjoy themselves, and Aaron and I are the ones who figure out all the details, right? And so by the time we get to the location, everything's been planned, everything's good to go, but there are things that we have to make sure are like connected, organized, everybody's up to par, whatever, on the ground. So our final night of like the W trek, we rented this beautiful estancia, which is again like a ranch in Sierra Beguales, which is the most remote, crazy place in all of Patagonia. They say they have a lot of UFO sightings, which is really cool, which I wish we would have seen one. But it's like one of those, it's like magnetic energy. It's just like a really kind of like weird place. So we rented a ranch there just for our group. And we had a chef and we had just a team helping us, and this beautiful house that was cozy and comfortable. And so as we're planning the trip, there were 2 houses on this estancia, 2 beautiful homes that were just for the group, right? So we could split the group in half and each would have a beautiful bedroom and a cozy place. So we were so excited. We get there. Now, this is what has been told to us, right? Both houses are done. You're good to go. This is going to be...
Everybody has a bed.
Yeah. And we get there and there's one beautiful house, and there's another one, but it doesn't look done yet. And we were like, okay, what's going on? You know, maybe there's another one. There's got to be another one. And so people had already kind of claimed we were like, okay, cool. Like we claimed rooms because then we're like, there's another house. It's going to be the same. And we'll take the rest of the group in that house and all will be well. And so and again, they don't really speak the best English. Communication's kind of hard because, you know, we don't speak Spanish, which is
our problem.
Yeah. So long story short, the house was not done. The second house was not done. Nobody told us that. It was we were like bamboozled, basically. Yeah. And so at first there was 6 people. They were going to put them in tents. It's snowing.
Right.
That's
and
not going to happen.
We just came off the complete W trek and had a hellacious weather day before we even got there. So we were soaked that day because it rained. Monster rain.
Yeah.
Like we had to cross a raging rapid creek, like by throwing trees over the top of it. Like it was a elements day. So the last thing you want to do is get done with a day like that, go to a beautiful place where some people are sleeping in this wonderful house where there's like a wood burning fire and there's like beautiful bedrooms. Like a butler. Yeah, and like literally have chefs like walking around pouring constant amounts of wine, and then you have to go out into your tent. Like not gonna happen.
Not okay. So
I mean, our guide came up to me and he was like, "Hey, so the people, I don't think it's safe to sleep in tents tonight." And I thought it was a joke, and I'm like, "Yeah, totally. Like, obviously. Why would anybody do that?" But later found out that that's what the plan was.
Yeah. Which, oh my God.
Yeah.
So we're like, obviously that's not going to happen. And so the family, it's a family run ranch. They had a home there. And so they said that those people could sleep in their home. So we're like, okay, well, that could work. Not ideal, but it could work. And we go over there, and it's like, again, when you're comparing it to this beautiful home that has the comfortable beds and the bathrooms and all the things, now it's like this family's home that there's no sheets on it's like a sleeping bag in it's their bedroom. It's their home. They're sleeping on the couch. And now people have
no power.
Well, there was no power in the other house. Well, both houses didn't have so the main house had electricity, but they turned it off at night. The other house didn't have electricity at all. So either way, at night you weren't going to have electricity. But we were just like, well, what the fuck are we supposed to do? Like, I just did not know.
Nobody had bed sheets. They had to sleep in sleeping bags.
I mean, there was a communication. Like, we couldn't really communicate which rooms are available, which rooms can we get. Like, they were wanting people to sleep in one bed together that didn't even like
know each other.
Like, they obviously know each other, but like not like that, right. You know? And so I like broke down and was just crying. So I'm just like, what do you do? Like, this is a disaster.
No, totally. And I think if you're comparing it, you could literally picture it as the main house that everybody was in was like a 5-star, like Stein Eriksen ski in, ski out, like lodge, right? Like beautiful reception area. Like, the living room was like comfortable and cozy and like full glass windows looking out into and then going to like the worst Motel 6 in like the raunchiest area. Yeah. Like, I'm using that as a dramatic example.
Yeah, it really wasn't that bad.
No, because we slept over in that house the second night.
So it ended up being like, people were super cool and they're like, it's totally fine. Like, don't worry about it. We can sleep over here. It's not that big of a deal, whatever. And so it ended up working out. I mean, we felt really bad about it because had we had known that was the situation, like we wouldn't have put people in that situation. Right. We were told both houses were done. So again, now we're in charge of trying to figure this out and we're like embarrassed and feel bad. And we're like, well, what are we supposed to do? And so that was really shitty, but people were cool about it. They slept over in the house and it ended up being such a fun night because we all hung out at the nice house, right? So that's where we had dinner. That's where we
showers.
We had our wine and we danced and like it was a crazy night. Like just a wild 3 a.m. night.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. So it ended up working out. But then on the next group, we were like, we're not going to take people here because the house isn't done. What are we going to do? And then we really thought about it and we were like, that was such a cool, unique experience. They had a fire pit where they roasted the lamb for us. Like it it was just us in the middle of the mountains with nobody else around. Like, it was such a Patagonian experience that you're not going to get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. And it's not a typical tourist place.
No, not at all. Like, this is all new. We're like the first group of people who've come here. And when the second house is done, I mean, their goal is like they want to bring people there, but it's brand new, right? They don't bring people here. So it's like a really unique experience. So anyways, after talking about it, we're like, you know what? Well, let's figure out the sleeping thing and let's go, because it was we have to. And so it ended up, again, the second group was like, I don't care, I'll sleep over there. And so Aaron and I slept over there, and it was completely fine. It was like one of the best nights of sleep of my life.
And they also stepped it up. The people at the house stepped it up because we got our fixers involved, and then we had originally canceled, and then we came back and they set it up for us. They had bed sheets on there.
Yeah.
Like, it was so comfortable. Like,
they were prepared for us this time. So that's what made the difference. I'm like, we'll come back, but like the bedrooms need to be fixed up for us. And so it wasn't a surprise, because the first time it was a surprise because they thought we were just going to sleep in tents. So it ended up, the second time was so much fun too. And it was just such a highlight experience because our guides were there, and then our other guide from when we went to La Peninsula was there, like
our horseback riding guide.
Another guy, yeah. So it's like we just had like a party with all of our people, but also like our team and the people who were helping us and working with us, and it was so cool.
It was magical. Yeah,
I really love Patagonia.
Yeah, no, I mean it's again, it's one of those things that, like, when you reflect and you look back in hindsight, like, there are times that you say, like, man, like, this is tough, or I'm having a rough day, or oh my gosh, I'm exhausted, or whatever. But then you come home and you, like, realize how magical that was.
Yeah.
And how I would go back in a heartbeat.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I would do that all over again.
One of the best trips we've ever done. And one of the most unique places. Like, it's so different than anywhere I've ever been. And when we come home, we always do a debrief of, like, what would we do differently? What did we learn? What could we work on, right? Because there's always things we can be working on. And so we just hash everything out. And one thing, though, that really did come out of this trip was 14 people in each group, because there were so many people who wanted to come. So we thought, oh, that's probably fine. Like, let's do it. Yeah. And that was too big, because we realized moving forward, we will only do 10 people in a group, because our whole niche and what's important to us is creating very boutique, unique experiences. And when you have a smaller group, it's more intimate and you really get to know people. And that group, even though we all connected and you know, we made beautiful relationships, it felt big to me. It felt like kind of split.
It did. I mean, even like we had two vans all the time because of everybody. And, you know, I do think that, you know, in a way it did allow for, you know, if you had 10 and they could only fit 8 in a van, like, what are the other 2 people doing? Are they by themselves?
Yeah.
You know, it's like little things like that we have to figure out.
Well, you just split 5 and 5.
Right, exactly. But it's literally like the vans weren't an issue. But, you know, I do think the smaller group is the way to go.
Oh, 100%. It's a non-negotiable. Like, it's just going to, because to me, that intimacy is the most important part for the trip. And even though we had that, it felt too much for me.
And it's easier to manage with like hotels and making sure that everybody
Dinners.
is like, right. And we're not like, again, this isn't a busload of people and you just don't care where people are. Like, we want everybody to stay close and really get to know each other and be sitting at the same table at dinner and being able to have one conversation. And that all takes a smaller group.
Yeah, 100%. So,
because those are the most magical times when we look at, you know, it's like the conversations around the dinner table, and, you know, those type of things are what last. And so if you have too large of a group, you can't hear each other. You're screaming, and it's just not the same feel.
And I think another thing that's important too for us is like not having clickiness. Like, you know, we really want everyone to feel comfortable and welcomed and included, and it's a group trip and you want to get to know people, you know. And I think sometimes it's easy to click off with people, you know,
or vibe with immediately,
and I think that's always going to happen in any situation. But we would always try at bigger like dinner, like, to bring everybody together as one and to have conversations. And I think we all felt connected doing that, you know.
Well, I think that's another life lesson that I have to learn too, that, like, you're not always going to completely vibe with everybody, right? Like it's individuals joining a trip and individuals that live a different life and live different ways. And like you have to be able to adapt to that and find that common ground and find those things that you can connect to. And like it's easy when you're tired to just fall into a conversation with people you vibe with. It's just simple. It's human nature, right? Like you are drawn to the people you feel connected to. And I think for us, it's about stopping that natural thing and branching out a little bit more. And I think that's something that we can do better at.
Yeah, no, I agree. Of 100%. Because especially when you know people and so yeah, it's definitely something we always have to continue to work on because they always just want everybody to feel completely welcome. And not that they don't feel well, I guess included. That's the word. It's included.
And not having to fight to I never even really had a conversation with anybody. And I mean, we do say that like when you do travel in a group, you kind of got to be a little bit more aggressive if you want to get heard.
Yeah.
But that's not everybody's personalities.
And I think that goes back to saying that our trips aren't for everybody too, because you and I have big personalities. We like to talk. We like to like be in the mix. We'll
fight our way in. Totally.
We are big personalities, and I love that about us. And that's just who we are. And there's a lot of big personalities on our groups, and there's also not. Like it is a good mix, I guess. But I think coming on a group trip, you have to be willing to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to be friendly and talk to people. And if you are somebody who just does not talk and because we try to get everybody involved and stuff, but like if you're somebody who just doesn't talk and just is very quiet, then a group trip might not be the best, because I do think that you really have to be able to feel comfortable to put yourself out there if you want to meet people, if you want to connect with people.
Well, I will say on the flip side of that, there are people that come that do not talk but like being in groups of people.
That's
right?
True.
And they are completely
and they're just chill.
Comfortable. There's a difference between your energy level of being somebody that like, I don't need to talk and I can have the best time of my life. Like I like listening to other people and I don't want to be the one talking, but I'm loving every minute of this. And there's a different personality versus I feel excluded. I'm just going to
have a puss on.
I'm going to have a puss on. I'm going to focus on that. And like, nobody's talking to me. Woe is me, blah, blah, blah. That's the kind of energy that does not fit on our trips.
Yeah, that's true.
Period, end of story.
That's true. Yeah. You don't have to be a big personality. That's 100% true. Not everybody is. And
I think we're just basically saying that there's only so far you can go with, people that just want to like be in their own element, right?
Yeah.
Like you can only do so much. The last thing I'm going to do is sit there and annoy people, because I did that on the first trip with Sweet Keaton, and I'm just like, why aren't you talking? Why aren't you saying anything? Like, Keaton, man, you're so loud, like blah, blah, blah. And it was like, because I noticed that he didn't talk and I felt like he felt excluded. But now that Keaton's come on the majority of the trips, he is one of my favorite people on the planet. And like, I just know that that's him.
Yeah.
And he doesn't need to be chatty Cathy. Like when he comes out, and he's one of those people that when he talks, everybody shuts up because you want to hear what he has to say.
Yeah.
But he is having the most magical experience in his own way.
Right.
And like, I don't need to facilitate any sort of him speaking to think that it's going to change.
100%.
And so that's another thing, is being able to read people, understand people, and love them for their personalities.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's not easy to do, and it's a skill that I want to learn and be amazing at.
Yeah, and these trips will definitely help us do that.
Totally. So we're gearing up for 2 more Perus.
Oh my God.
Bali and then Oaxaca this year. So if you're interested in joining these Travsessed adventures, we would love to have you. Mm-hmm. You can get on the interest list by going to imtravsessed.com, and you'll see a tab that says adventure trips, and you can just sign up there, and that gets you on the interest list, because when we launch these trips, that's where the first communication goes to. So you can stay in the loop with everything that we have going on. So
I feel like there's just so many stories and so much like we could talk about on these, like.
There is, but I have a public service announcement for these trips.
Okay.
Like, can we get some guys on these trips?
Yes, bring your husbands
or boyfriends, and it's starting to come. But it is very one-sided.
Well, the first group was perfect because there was
3, and me.
Oh, that's true. Why did I think there was 4?
Out of 14.
Okay. The second group, there was only 1 other dude.
Yeah.
So yes, we definitely need some good male energy. I like when there's a balance.
I do too.
It's so like on the first group, like it's nice to have that good balance. Like, so yes, we want some more male energy. So bring your male friends, bring your partners, bring your boyfriends, tell your friends, tell your daddy, bring your grandpa.
Well, no. Unless grandpa is crushing it.
Yeah, I know. So that's important for sure. But yeah, we're home, we're settled. It was a crazy journey to get home. I think that will be the last story we tell.
We've hit our hour mark.
Okay, so we'll tell this and then wrap it up. I feel like there's so much more I wanted to say, but
obviously the funny stories for us have been the snafus. Because there's always like great stories, and we can tell you how great the trip was, and I think we've expressed that. I just don't want it to be every story is like a snafu.
Yeah, but those are the funny ones.
This was pretty, yeah.
And then Lauren on the top of the mountain in a fucking liner. Okay, I'm going to tell 2 stories real quick because these are funny.
This is going to be an hour and a half episode.
No. So we hiked. So on the second group, we had the most beautiful weather the entire time, like literally the entire time. Mm-hmm. And we do the towers hike, which is the grand finale up to the towers, like what you see in all the Patagonia pictures.
It's a long day.
It's a long day. So we hike up there. It's the most beautiful hike. All the colors are lit. It's red. It's orange. I mean, it was just so beautiful, which is why we wanted to go in fall because of the colors. And there's less people. So we get up to the top and literally we got up there and just a whole cloud comes in with like snow and hail and rain and wind. And it was crazy because we'd had such beautiful weather. And then we get to the top and we saw the towers for maybe 5 minutes.
If that.
We snapped a couple of pictures and then it was gone.
They weren't even fully like...
They weren't even fully there.
No, and they were fully there in the morning. The sunrise on the towers, we could see it from our campsite.
Yeah.
Were just booming. And it was like that typical Patagonia picture on Google. It was gorgeous. And so we're like, yes, it's going to be great. And boy, did it change quickly.
But I feel like it was Patagonia giving us a hug, right?
Yeah.
To the group of just like, I've given you beautiful weather, but I'm not going to let you leave without you experiencing my wrath because it just came out and it was like, this is so Patagonia. So we get up to the top. It's absolute chaos with the weather. We're trying to get pictures. We're trying to get a group pic and a video. We're like blowing over. The hail's like pelting us in the face.
We're hiding behind a huge boulder just to eat and huddling together because it was like so cold.
It was so crazy. And then we wanted to get a group pic with, our Travsessed shirts. And we're all soaking wet, freezing cold. And we're like, and then we had to leave our rock cave to like go out there and do it. And again, we're all just like laughing about it because you're just like, what is this? This is insane. So one of our friends, Lauren, who we love, our little buffalo, she literally, like when it comes to hiking, the most important thing is you have a base layer and it always has to be wool, right? You don't want it to be cotton. It has to dry, or it has to be synthetic, like where it dries and wicks and all of that. Like that's like hiking 101. You have a base layer, it protects you, and then you build on the base layer. So, and rain gear is the most important part of Patagonia. Mm-hmm.
And noticing that most rain gear under those conditions are not completely waterproof. So you need to almost have a second layer to absorb that to keep yourself dry and warm.
Yeah. So we get to the top and Lauren literally is wearing a Travsessed cotton, the worst thing you can wear because it doesn't dry or absorb any sort of liquid or whatever. Travsessed t-shirt and then a raincoat liner. Not a raincoat, a liner. And she's soaking wet. And you can just see the Travsessed like through because it was white. You can just, because she's so soaking wet, you can see the shirt she's wearing underneath. And it was so funny because we're just like, is that a liner? And she's like, I don't know. I think so. Like, I thought it was my raincoat. Like, I don't know. But it was so funny because it was just like the worst possible outfit you could ever wear on that kind of a hike. And she just had such a good attitude about it too because it was freezing cold. And she's just like, whatever, like, I'm okay. It is.
Well, then our guide's looking at me, like pointing at 3 people saying like, we got to go because like hypothermia could set in. Like that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
And she's just like, what else? Just take some pictures. Yeah. Like, I'm in my liner.
It was
like,
just so
hilarious.
Funny. It was just like one of those moments where you're just like, what are you wearing right now? Like, and then we could only stay up at the towers for maybe 20
we stayed up there a while.
Minutes, like maybe
stayed up
30
there a
minutes.
while.
And then we had to go down, but it was so beautiful until the crazy weather happened. But again, that was the only bad weather we had the entire trip, which was crazy.
Yeah.
And then finally getting home.
Oh, I'll tell this. So we book our flights home. Kim books a direct flight from, we had to go to Punta Arenas because Puerto Natales, that airport is brand new, and it is literally the coolest airport I've ever seen. It's literally a trailer and like a big landing strip. We literally landed, went past the airport, did a U-turn on the runway, and then came back and just parked outside like you would park at an airport. Like literally I could see the cars parked in the airport. It was awesome. So anyway, we couldn't fly out of there because they weren't doing flights because it was the end of the season, so we had to go to Puerto Arenas. So we took a 3-hour drive down there, and Kim booked a direct flight from Puerto Arenas to Santiago on Sky Airlines. And so there was pretty much half and half, right? Half the group was on one flight, half the group was on this flight. So it was nice that we had like our group there. And so we're flying, and we realize that it says it's landing in Puerto Montt. And we're like, wait, we thought we had a direct flight. And so the airline just changed it and said we're,
pit stop
in Puerto Montt. So they're like, don't worry about it. Don't get off the plane. We're just going to pick up a couple people and fly on to Santiago. So we literally land, and we're sitting there, and I hear in Spanish, like all the people that spoke.
Well, no, the captain came on the plane on the intercom, and he said something. And they don't repeat in English. There's no catering to English. So it was only in Spanish. And after he spoke, everybody was like pissed off, like, grabbing their shit. And we're like, what's going on? What happened?
Yeah, so we ask a flight attendant, and she repeats that basically, she goes, there's problem with flight. And we're like, there's a problem with the plane? And she's like, no, problem with flight. The captain, we've reached our max flight time, so we're no longer taking off.
We're not continuing on to Santiago.
No.
And we were, and so Puerto Montt to Santiago is like an hour. Like it's not even that far. So they're like, you have to get off the plane. We're no longer going to Santiago.
Yeah, we've reached our regulation flight time.
We're like, wait, what?
Yeah, this was a scheduled flight to Santiago, and you just said, okay, we're no longer flying anymore.
And this is a small airport. We don't even know where we were. It was like weird. And so we all get off, and we're like, well, now what? What do we do? And we all have connecting flights in Santiago, which is why we got a nonstop flight.
And timed.
Yeah. And so we're basically like running around. Nobody's speaking English. Nobody will even speak to us. They're like dismissing us. Like they're annoyed with us. And we're like, we're just trying to get on a flight to Santiago, but nobody would help us.
No. And so they're literally like, there's a flight coming in going to Santiago. And so like we're trying to figure it out ourselves. And so we just literally are standing in line in another plane. And they were just going to let us walk on this plane. They were taking WhatsApp pictures of our boarding passes and just like writing our names in pink pen on like pieces of paper and like passing that around. There was
no computer system. There was no organization.
There was nobody over the intercom speaking, like nothing. So you have an entire plane that's trying to get to Santiago, just running around this airport, trying to like run through jetways to jump on planes. It really felt like Dumb and Dumber, like just like hold that plane. So we get all the way up to this random flight, which we noticed that there was people that spoke Spanish were boarding that flight from our flight. So we're like, oh, let's go. So we walk down there and like, sorry, plane's full. So there's another flight coming in. And so we're just like, wait, what? Like where? So they're not even telling us. So basically push come to shove, like we end up finding a plane.
Well, I had this feeling that there was a plane at another, we were at one gate and I was like, I feel like that one, I should go look. And then I kept like kind of putting it off, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to walk over there and look. And then I saw this girl who I had met who was helping us because she spoke English. And
a passenger.
Yeah, just a passenger. And so, because we did meet some nice people who were trying to help translate for us because we didn't understand anything that was going on. Sweet James. So I saw her and I was like, oh my gosh, like, is this the flight? Are we going to Santiago? And she was like, well, he's letting me on and I'll see if I can get you guys on the plane. Like it was like they were only letting special people on the plane. It was insane. And so I called everybody over because I'm like, come on. And then she gets on. She's like, sorry, I told him, but like I'm getting on the plane. Like good luck, basically. And so we're all just like waiting there, and then they stop us all. They won't let any of us on until everyone else boards. And then they went down the list of like the pink pen list. And thank God, every one of us were able to get on that flight. And I was so glad that I walked over there because honestly, it was like boarding.
Well, you walked over to the one that we didn't get on. I walked over to 434 because I realized that was on the top of the page that she was writing in the pink thing. So I went and found that flight number. And then you were standing up at the gate, like basically about to walk in. And I was like, thank God,
I'm getting
because
on this flight.
I would never just stand there. And
I didn't give a fuck.
No,
I'm getting on this plane.
Yeah. So we all ended up getting on. Kim and I missed our flight. So did Lauren. But the rest of the group got their connecting flight because they had it at like 10 p.m. Ours was like an 8:30 flight. So we missed that flight. But it was nice because then we just stayed in the hotel and we went out and explored Santiago and had like an amazing day with Lauren, our little buffalo. And like it was a good day. And then our flight was supposed to board the next night at 8:30. And then it was 9:30. And then it was, midnight. And then it was,
2 a.m.
We did not take off until 2:30 a.m.
Yep, which is insane. But it was like one of those other things that was a complete snafu. But we just made the best of it. We're like, we can either sit here and complain, or there was a Holiday Inn at Santiago Airport, which couldn't have been more convenient. And then we got to spend the whole day in Santiago. We got to show Lauren and take her to this awesome place for lunch that we wanted to go back to. And we're like, okay, cool, this worked out. And we got to upgrade. So I upgraded to business for $47 plus points. And then Aaron upgraded, it was like $300 or something. More than that. Yeah. But like, so then we got to fly business home. And I'm like, okay, not mad at that.
And first in the last one, that got us into the Admiral's Lounge to go take a shower. Not to mention, when we got to Santiago, we missed our flight. Well, we noticed as we were taking off, we look out the plane we got onto, and there's our luggage just sitting on the tarmac.
Oh yeah, we're like,
luggage. I guess that's not coming with us.
Yeah.
And Kim and I have those Apple tags in our luggage, so like I could see that it was still there. So basically, our luggage was not coming to Santiago until the midnight flight. And so we lost luggage on our last trip, and I was like, we're not going through that again and dealing with another country and like all this kind of stuff. So it's best if we stay the night and get our luggage.
Yeah.
Well, they told me, again, through broken English, that I could just come back into baggage claim and grab our luggage when it comes in on the midnight flight. So I was like, okay, so something in me was like, you have to attempt to do this. Kim's like, no, we'll get it in the morning. Like, it's fine. I was like, no, I need to get on this now when the flight comes in, when the luggage comes off the rack, we got to grab it. And so she's like, fine, I'm tired. I'm going back to the hotel. I got to pee. And I was like, okay, fine. So I end up literally almost getting arrested in the Chilean Santiago airport because I could not get into that area. It was a restricted area. So I ended up seeing on the second level, there was a staircase that led behind the doors. Great security, I guess. And so ended up walking out this door and ended up in the baggage claim area. And I'm standing there and I'm trying to get somebody's attention, like a security guard who's standing at the door. So I wait for the doors to open. I walk in, I'm like, excuse me, I'm supposed to grab my luggage. It's coming in on the midnight flight. Like, I just need to get in here and get my luggage. And he was like, no English. And he turns around and starts laughing to his friend. And so then I went like ape shit crazy. And I'm like, I start to like take off running because I see our bags coming down. And so they're like, ah, like freaking out. So then like some guy comes running over. He's like, what's going on? What's going on? And I was like, you speak English? And he was like, yes. And I was like, I was on the flight that was canceled. And like, we got on another flight. That's my luggage over there. And so he was like trying to figure it out. And so I just took off running again. And then he chases me down and he makes me show like my passport, my boarding pass. So I'm grabbing not only our luggage, but everybody else's on the plane and putting it out. And he's like asking why I'm collecting all these bags. And I was like, this is my group. And like, I'm making sure. And then I flagged somebody from Sky down and like lined up the things that are other group's bags and then come walking out and I was like, I got our luggage, and Kim and Lauren came over, and they're like, oh my God.
I know, you were like the suitcase hero.
Yeah.
I was so grateful.
But we had our luggage for the next day.
Thank God,
Yeah.
dude. It all worked
Because I
out.
had pissed my pants and everything.
Oh my God, I know. You come back, your wiener's soaking wet. There's pee everywhere. And I'm like, I like said, did you pee yourself as a joke? Like, and I thought you were gonna be like, no, water spilled. You were like, I did. I'm like, okay, we've reached a new level. Like, we need to go home.
I had to pee, but I had to bust through security, so there was no time. And then all the
God.
excitement, I just couldn't control it.
Oh, what a trip.
Yeah.
All right, we'll end it there.
Well, yeah, and this is the 2-hour podcast.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I'm sick.
I'm hungry. Let's go.
All right, well, it feels good to be back on the mic, and we are going to make this back a regular thing, hopefully.
We'll be back next Thursday.
We will, definitely.
All right.
All right.
Toodaloo, motherfucker.
Okay. Deuces.